All right. Family Business Podcast. We're back again. And this is an episode we've talked about doing for a while. We hadn't been quite ready to do. But we're just going to dive in. After 23 years, at least for Brad, for me, it was 15 years. And PT, what? 2? 3? 2?
Yeah, but just 2.
Well, after Brad's 23 years, we made a decision that changed everything. And today we're telling you exactly why we left the brokerage that Brad was with for 23 years, which also had deep family ties. Brad's family had and PT's family, I guess mine too, Anna, right? Married. Had a brokerage. His grandmother started on the Illinois half of our Quad Cities in 1954. She grew that brokerage to be, with the help of Brad's dad, to be the largest brokerage on the Illinois side of the Quad Cities. And they merged with the brokerage that we left after 23 years for Brad in 1993, and became the largest brokerage in the entire Quad Cities for quite some time. And so making the decision to leave there with people that Brad had basically grown up with and known his entire life was not an easy decision. So what, just kind of taking this in, Brad, what was, PT, feel free to ask some of these questions for us. Maybe we might help, might need your help leading us through this. I feel like this would be emotional.
You need to be the MC.
Right, exactly. And I think where it needs to start is at the beginning, right? So, I've kind of got a little bit of an idea of where it started, but I think there was even probably inclination to this before then too. But where did it start? Why did you start to think about the possibility that it's time to move on? Where did that start at?
Yeah, so it started a while ago. I would say, we went to a lot of CRS conferences where there were these other brokerages around that we hadn't heard of, and we were like, wow, we love where we're at. It's a local company, lots of loyalty there. And then probably the turning point for us was we went to a follow-up boss.
Yeah, but I want to take it back. Okay. I want to take it back. You're speeding way far ahead. That was in November of 2022, but it's something that we had talked about for probably 5 years prior, I would say.
Of doing our own brokerage.
And really what sparked that was we would go to these CRS conferences and we would listen to people, not just from other brokerages, but we would listen, we went there to try to gain knowledge and tools to grow our business and to help our clients, buy and sell and have a better experience. And every time we would go to one, we would, we'd always go to different classes, right? Brad would go to one class and I'd go to the other so that we could, learn different things. And it never failed. We'd meet up for lunch or we'd go to our room that night. And I can remember talking through all these different things that we learned that we were so excited about. And then we'd get to the point where we'd go, shoot, we can't do that. Well, shoot, our current brokerage doesn't allow that. Well, no, they won't let us do that. And it was just one of those things where it just started to be like, what are we doing? We have all these ideas and great things we want to do and ways we want to grow and be better and excel in our chosen profession in the business we're building. But every time we'd have an idea, it was a roadblock for us. And that really made us start to feel like we got to make a change here. I don't know how, I don't know what. You were super resistant at first because of the family. You and I had some intense fellowship.
Yeah. And the more that I really think about it, going back even before the follow-up boss conference, do you remember we were in Orlando and we went to a conference, CRS conference down there. And there was a company called Side that was there. And I think that was when it really got our minds going, maybe we should do our own thing. And I can't remember what year that was. Was that before COVID?
It was when we were selling those people's house out in Stony Creek because we went to meet them. That's we were at a CRS conference and our clients, this was like one of the biggest sales of our career at the time, like, I don't know, just over $1 million. And the deal got put together while we were there. And I remember that we were like, well, how are we going to get this signed? Yeah, and we met them for lunch because they were at the same resort we were at. But anyway.
So that was probably when we seriously started having conversations about, okay, if we're going to do this, how do we do it? And I think the detractor was whenever I would talk to my dad about doing anything like that, he would always say, you don't want to own your own brokerage. And I often wondered why. I mean, that's what he did for all those years. Well, there's a reason why he merged with the other company. And quite frankly, now that I look backward, I understand exactly what he was saying is it looks great on the outside, but I always like to tell the story in the early 80s. Those of you that were around then in the real estate business can appreciate this. My dad came home and said, I have good news and bad news. And my mom said, okay, what's the good news? He said, everybody's paid at the office. Bad news is there's nothing left over. And my mom looked at him and said, if you ever come home again and you say that, you're going to have to find a real job. And when you look at that, you can't control the economics. And I think he looks back at that, and that was kind of an eye opener that, they were down to nothing really. And that's the risk that you take when you run your own brokerage, that you're responsible for paying everybody. And I think that was part of the reason why he discouraged me from starting our own brokerage. It's a lot more than what it looks like on the outside.
Yeah, and we would have people, I mean, I can remember because of your family's reputation, I mean, all the time we'd have people come up to us and say, when are you going to start BOEYE again? Right? When are you going to start BOEYE again? And Brad's like, and we used to have like kind of internal jokes about it, right? Until your dad really hammered that home. And, it was hard for us to understand that at the time. But the interesting thing is, in hearing you tell that story, is that, there were many times for us, people looking from the outside in would never have known this because, we're throwing up, setting records. And, I think at the time we were number one in the state of Iowa and sold $39 million in real estate. We had a GCI over $1 million, but guess what? We weren't taking $1 million home.
No.
Because by the time we got done paying, we had a full-time assistant that we paid a hefty salary to. We were paying for all kinds of technology and platforms and things that we needed, we felt, to service our clients better that we were not being offered in our current brokerage. Yet we were paying them a big ass split out of every paycheck.
Yeah. And, I think that where our market is, where we work, where we live, here in the Midwest, is I like to refer to this, we're a little bit in a bubble. So when you go out and you see all of these new things and you kind of realize, one, okay, I do think that we lag a little bit behind on what's happening in the larger cities. So you start to get exposed to new ideas, new things. And we kind of are starting to get into some frustrations, some limitations. But FubCon, is kind of the staple piece here where I think the fire was ignited. So walk us through that. We kind of started to see a bigger picture here of what could be, I think, is where we're at. So FubCon out in Vegas, and
remember that real well, right, PT? I remember walking through where they had all the vendors, and we would tell people that we worked for this local company, and they would look at us like we had three heads, like why do you work for that? I was like, no, it's a good company, it's great people.
We defended that so many times.
And we're like, in our area, it's very local, which is very true, but we were in our own heads that, because I really think, like, going back, like, even years ago, like Remax, when they came into the market, which would have been 25 years ago or so, they made quite a splash, but it didn't feel enough different from the traditional brokerage that you would want to make a move. For some people, it did, which is great, and a lot of them are there still. So if they're happy, they're great. But it still had that traditional brokerage hierarchy that if we were going to make a change, it was going to be for something completely different than where we were at. And I'll let Andrea kind of tell the story about how Real even came up. I mean, we had researched it a little bit.
We knew of it. We knew of it. Yeah. Well, I want to, I think it's pretty important too. So we are super strong in our faith, and especially being in the business together as a husband and wife, we have had to rely on our faith so many times throughout that, because let me tell you something. It's wonderful to work with your spouse, but it's also not so wonderful to work with your spouse, because it's just, there's a lot of things that are difficult, because it's especially when you're running a big business like we were. And, when you talk about frustrations and limitations, PT, we ended up with Follow Up Boss because, again, going back to the traditional model, they didn't offer a CRM that was worth a crap, right? Yet we were paying big splits. And so we tried, when I came on board with Brad, my background, sales and marketing, I knew that we needed a good CRM. I knew it. And I spent, let's just not even talk about the amount of money and time that I spent on everything that was out there. I tried to take a CRM from our old company and make it into that. It was for a hotel business, and I tried to put it in sales. We tried Lion Desk when they were brand new. We tried, what was the other one? Salesforce, we were going to drop on. But anyway, we were lucky enough again, and the CRS was such a blessing to learn. We kept hearing about Follow Up Boss, And finally, one day I'm like, let's just do it, right? Like, this just seems like it's everything it was meant to be. So we love Follow Up Boss. We still use Follow Up Boss. Shout out to Follow Up Boss, even though Zillow bought them. But anyway, so going to that 2022, we had a couple of really tough years in our relationship. I had some health things that had happened. Obviously COVID had happened. And again, on the outside, everything looked like, here they are. They're this power couple, top, realtors in the marketplace in the state, just killing it, right? And we were not happy. We would go home every day exhausted. We did not want to go into the office because it really offered nothing for us from a positive, mental state. Not that there wasn't some good people in those offices, but it wasn't conducive to what our hopes and dreams and goals were. And so anyway, if anybody of you has Follow Boss, you know that they pop up these little things on your screen, like when they're going to have an event or whatever. And so this thing kept popping up on my screen for FubCon. And I was like, finally, it was like literally, I think it was 30 days before the conference. It popped up one last time. And I was just, at my wit's end that day, sitting at my desk at my home office. And I was just like, why not? Clearly, God, you're clearly speaking to us right now. I guess we need to go. So I printed off the whole layout, and I was like, let's go to this, Brad. And so, I showed it to you, and you're like, really? It's, the tickets are ridiculous because we're so close, and, we're like, yeah, let's bring PT too. So we all went, and, again, we knew we were searching, and it became even more clear at that conference, like there's all these things we want to do, and we're being held back in the current business model or current model we're in. And so we were standing there in the hotel. I don't remember what hotel we stayed at. It doesn't matter. And we were talking to a couple of the people. Barry Jenkins was one of the people, which I'm sure if Barry's listening to this, or if he listens to it, he'll never understand.
Cosmopolitan.
There we go. But I don't think I can't put into words. And it's really interesting to me because those of you who know Barry Jenkins on any level, I know he went through some tough times in his life and his business, and he has a very successful business, but, we really respected him. And, we said, hey, we've tossed around Compass, we've tossed around this, we've tossed around that, whatever. And, we just know it's time for something different. We're scared. It's a big jump. He's like, he looks at us point blank and he said, I'm going to tell you what, I'm not starting over because I'm so established in what I have right now in Virginia Beach. But if I was, Real is what I would be looking at. And we took that as the biggest sign from God because we'd already considered it is time to figure out what this thing is about. And then we came home and literally just every minute of every day, I think we spent researching on the internet, researching on the web, on everybody's social media that was part of Real, podcasts about Real. And we kept saying to each other, what do we keep saying, Brad?
This can't be real. I mean, there's no way that any company is this good. And it was Malcolm's videos
Malcolm Lawson,
that we watched. I know that was one of the first ones, and it just laid everything out. And I was, this cannot be real. And it's been better than even the video is. And that's no offense to Malcolm, because he does a great job in the video. But when you're in the company, just the culture and the revenue streams, which we will get to here in a second. But I mean, one of the biggest things is the previous brokerage that we were at really didn't change. They were the same company that they were when I joined back in 2000, which would have been at that time 23 years later. And quite frankly, pretty much the same company now. Since we've been at Real, they've made a couple of minor changes, but I hate to compare it to the Blockbuster video thing, but I do. That these big box store brokerages, the problem is they have all these buildings, all these salaries, all this staff. And I was just listening to a podcast with Tamir, the CEO of Real, and that's one of the things he talked about was that their expenses when it comes to those things are so low because of their tech, that they've been able to not spend all that money on all these salaries, all these buildings, but rather take that money and reinvest it back in the agents. And they're able to do that, as I've learned more. Like a lot of people say, how do they pay those splits? How do they do all the rest of that? If you listen to these podcasts, they're a tech company. So they're making a lot of money off of that. They also are a mortgage company. So they've got a mortgage part of their business. They're also a title company. They have a title part of their business. And then also, as agents, I mean, my goodness, I mean, you're a part owner of the company, that you own stock in the company. So you're literally an owner of the company, and you can also earn revenue share as well. All this just seemed like this cannot be possible. That I was used to the traditional brokerage model where you would pay so much money back to the brokerage. In the end, I don't know what you were getting.
Well, and we used to sit down, no joke, and make spreadsheets upon spreadsheets upon spreadsheets. And to echo what you just said, you would be like, well, I look at how in the world, like, I swear they're going to pay me to work there. Like, I don't understand. Right. And then, it's like, once we realize that, right, it's like, it's one of those things you saw it, so you can't unsee it. And then all of a sudden, like, this pit is in your stomach, right? Because you're like, I mean, we were scared. I mean, let's not BS. I mean, it was a scary thing to make a decision where we were burning a bridge from a relationship that had really been part of your family for 3 generations, really, when you go all the way back to the senior owner of the other company. And we were going to, and Real was not in our market at all. I mean, that's the other thing. So, like, and then you have everybody that's like, okay, well, we're this, the Quad Cities is, local based. Okay. So it's a cloud brokerage, right? Because the word on the street is cloud brokerage. There's, like, I guess, people floating in the sky, and there's not any people really around. I don't know. That was, I guess, the philosophy we had. But that was some times when you and I would have some heart-to-heart discussions about. But then it was, like, also, like, where we couldn't sleep at night because we would start the possibilities just seemed endless if it was for real. No pun intended.
And I think the other thing that's kind of incredible is one of my frustrations with the traditional brokerage is that it's run by a core group of people. And we would get surveys from time to time.
They didn't do a dang thing with those. Let's be real. We would all of us, this is the best part about those surveys, and I've never disclosed this. They would do the surveys. And then those of us that actually produced in the company, which basically none of us are left there anymore, would all eat because they'd send the surveys out and then nothing would happen. And then we'd all message each other and be like, hey, how'd you answer this question? And we'd all realize that we answered it the same way, but nothing would happen. So really they didn't care.
And that's where Real's been completely different is I feel like they've been more interested in what we think about the company than the previous brokerage was the entire time I was there. And I don't think that's unique to the brokerage that we were at. But when you get into these smaller brokerages, I really think they get into a little bit of groupthink that it's always worked this way. It's always been okay. And that's the most dangerous. That's the most dangerous thing that you can ever do as a business is to say that we've always done it this way and it's always going to work. Because guess what? Over time, it doesn't work. Right. And you have to adapt to the changes.
Well, and I know we got to move on and more of this, but like the other thing I would say is like, I mean, as human beings, I mean, those people are good people. It's just that when your model is set up that way, your only concern is your bottom line, which it should be. But even more so in that type of model, you have to just continue to figure out how to make money off of your agents because that's how you support all the things that you really just need to know.
Yeah, and that goes back to owning your own brokerage too, right? I mean, the margins are so small that you have to have other items at your company that you're making money off of, and that's one of the things about Real is they have all these ancillary services that they make money off of, and they're saving a ton in like other areas too, and giving it back to the agents. And I just never thought at the traditional brokerage that the mindset was, let's always go on to the next thing. Let's be on the cutting edge. It was more so, let's just maintain what we have and everything's good.
Well, and our other struggle with some of the other model, like, so again, we had discerned this for a while, right? And we had looked at models like EXP or Compass. We considered what was called Iowa Realty, which was Prudential from the Des Moines market. They were opening here in the Quad Cities. We had considered all of those. But again, nothing felt right. Nothing lined up. When it came to like EXP, which people will say is, is similar to Real, it is similar in the sense that they're cloud brokerages. But I think the line stops right there. Everything else about it is completely different. And EXP was really never even a thought to us. And it wasn't because it was a cloud brokerage. It didn't work. That model didn't work for us. It did not align with our values in business.
It was more of kind of the feeling, right? I mean, it just didn't feel right. And quite frankly, for years, nothing really felt right. And then Real kind of came along, and it was the first brokerage that we researched where I said almost immediately, this feels right.
Right. And so, I mean, you started to kind of feel your pain points and kind of understand what else was available, what was on the cutting edge. And then that seed was planted. You did your research, which I think is a very important aspect for anybody that might be considering making a move. We talk about it all the time, is interview, see what pieces fit. So that's also a huge kind of aspect of when you might have an inkling of that you might not be in the right place, is to do your research, see where you might fit best. But what was the final straw that broke the camel's back? And
I just think, over the years, I've talked a lot about, where we've been, where we're going. But the biggest thing was not being heard. That I felt like at the company that nobody really ever asked how we were doing. No one really asked, how is it that we are able to get better other than the surveys like we just mentioned, but those kind of fell on deaf ears. But more so, I didn't feel like we were a part of the company. I felt like we worked at the company.
And for me, it's two things. So I agree with what Brad's saying. And for all intents and purposes, we did work at the company. I mean, that's literally the way that those brokerages are structured. Whereas real is you are a owner of the company. Like you literally have stock that you are invested in the company and its success. But for me, there was two things. Number one was the fact that, I just knew we kept, again, all the sales, all the things. So I can't say that we weren't capable of putting up crazy numbers and having a successful real estate business in that brokerage. We were, but at what cost? We were on a hamster wheel that we could never get off of, because all we were doing is, if we stopped answering the phone and we stopped taking care of our clients, which we love doing, then all of a sudden, then our money stopped, right? Yeah. And that's in like PT, there was nobody that we trusted covering our business. We could literally never, we did not really have a true vacation until this last year, just a few months ago. You and I went on a 4-day, put our phones on do not disturb trip to Cancun, Mexico, which literally we have not done that since our honeymoon. And we've been married for 17 years because there wasn't anybody that we truly felt comfortable with turning over our business to during that time. And that was important to us. And honestly, PT, the other thing, what was the breaking point is when we knew that you wanted to do this and you wanted to continue, that be the fourth generation of BOEYE Realtors in the Quad Cities, and knowing that us continuing at that company was not setting you up for success in the future. Wow. That was a hard look in the mirror. We cannot continue to pour ourselves into him and him pour himself into his energy and effort to grow his business. And this is what we're setting him up for.
Yeah. We always talk about, and on the episode that we talked about why we got into the business and the industry is, we have 4 generations that business, not only does our industry change every single day, but can you imagine how much it changes generation over generation? And so the understanding of the importance of being somewhere that is on the cutting edge every single day the company wakes up was, in my opinion, something so important, because, you can only do so much. You just explained it right there. You literally had to spend 17 years without feeling that you could walk away from your phone. We talked about Sharon in the episode a couple episodes ago. It's just not sustainable. Right? So I think that's a phenomenal point, and probably I would agree that you just came to the realization that it was time.
Well, and we talked about this in Dallas. We went to the event that Eric Hatch put on in Dallas a few weeks ago, and at the end it was weird because like, hey, what's your takeaways? Something to share, whatever. And I normally I know people can't imagine this because I like to talk, but I really don't like to talk in front of big groups of people. I don't. I mean, I can do it. It's not like it's an uncomfortable thing for me, but I'm one of those people, like, I'm very passionate about things that I care about and I feel strongly about. And so then I get emotional, and that makes me feel uncomfortable because I'm a type A personality. And so I don't like to get emotional. But I stood up and I just felt called to say, we talk about the culture at Real all the time, but it literally, we did not like our jobs anymore. We loved our clients. We loved what we did for our clients. We loved those relationships. And we cared a lot about the people that were around us. But at the end of the day, selling real estate was not fun anymore. And not just from the sense of Brad and I, but I mean, we were so strapped in our business for what this big, huge thing that we had created, that the model we were in could not support the ways that it should have grown to allow us to be happier and help our clients better. And we couldn't give back to the community the way we wanted. We could not be with our friends the way we wanted. We could not be with our family the way we wanted. We could not be involved in our church the way we wanted. And I remember, you talk about defining moments, PT. I can remember being, we're blessed enough in our business to have purchased a second home about 10 years ago. And it's an investment, and we rent it and whatnot, but we do spend some time there in the summers. And I can remember we have a week every year that we spend with my family. And the young nieces just adore Uncle Brad driving the boat, and they get to go skiing or tubing behind it. And we made a promise to them that, Uncle Brad was just going to do a little bit of work. And keep in mind, this is like 5-6 days out of an entire year, right? That we're feeling like, and we're working the entire time we're there. And Uncle Brad's just going to do a little work, and then we're going to take the boat out and go, skiing and tubing. And I remember it's like 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, 3 hours passed. And I remember little Nadia, she's like, is Uncle Brad ever going to get off the phone? And like, she was, literally mad, and she had every freaking right to be. And, that was just another thing for us. It's like, there has to be a freaking better way. This just cannot continue. Like, it can't.
Yeah, that's pretty much hit it right on the head. And going back to the quality of life too, just in the future, like I had mentioned briefly, I mean, stock, age and attraction, mentoring. I mean, just all these things that I've always wanted to do. Real allows us to do these things. And going back to the last company, it wasn't the people were the reason why we left. I love the people. I mean, we had great managers that really cared. We had a great ownership team that really cared. But the issue was we could not accomplish what we wanted to accomplish there in the end. And then Real came along, and we were just like, wow, this blew us away. And I keep saying this, it's better than I ever thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that we've met from around the country. And it's not the old company's fault necessarily. It's the way that it's set up. But there's no competition at Real. Like, no, I remember when we were at the old company, we were all in competition with each other. At Real, it's collaboration, and that is taught from the CEO right on down.
Well, and not just that competition, but the best part is competition for what? For the wooden plaque that you get that said that you were number one again in the company. I mean, right now, all those plaques are in boxes in our basement. And what I have to show for it is a lack of time with my friends and family, and not being as good as I could have been for my clients and my spouse and whatnot. And that's what I said when we were at that conference in Dallas, is I just said, selling real estate is fun again. Like I get up every morning and I am excited. Sometimes I, again, can't go to sleep at night because I'm just excited about all the growth and the learning and the things and the new agents that we're helping. It is such a beautiful, amazing, sometimes I literally have to pinch myself. Sometimes we're in our office meetings and I'm like basically in tears because I'm just so thrilled with this vehicle. That's what they talk about too, is like Real is really a vehicle. If we decided to get in it, thank freaking God. And thank God that we allowed him to direct our path to do that. I mean,
yeah. And the other thing that I always kind of think about are the tools that the company gives you too, right? And not just the actual technology is awesome. I mean, they do a great job of that. But the agents that push you to be better agents, right? And people. I can't say enough.
It's pretty incredible to go through the journey and kind of reflect on it, because it did move fast. Once the decision was made, it did move fast. And before I knew it, we were at a new brokerage. But, I think there was one thing, once the decision was made, is what would be the perception, right? What would be the, not only from the past brokers that we have generations of relationships with, but also the public perception as well. Oh, you're not out local. You're not coming. You're not going to make it. Tell us what really. I mean, tell us. Has it changed the business? Has it done?
Trust me, that was in the back of my head. Was if we go to this cloud brokerage, which I still in the back of my head kind of thought, cloud brokerage. But that being said, I can't tell you how many people asked me what took you so long. Mm-hmm. And what they meant by that is I think they always thought, that we would run our own brokerage at some point. But this is the best of both worlds. I mean, where we get to do our own thing and we have the backing of Real. So in terms of the local thing, zero. Like one of our partners said the last time I checked, we all live in the Quad Cities.
Right.
So, and we're all very involved in the community. And so in terms of not being local, like corporate wise, nobody's even questioned that we have a brick and mortar right off of Middle Road and Devil's Glen Road in Bettendorf, Iowa, right behind Whitey's. So it's right there, very visible, and we're also active as a company as well in the Quad Cities. So very proud of all that, and there has been zero pushback from any of our clients in terms of not heard of our company or whatever. So let's go back here just a second. That's where the traditional brokerage, when I got into business, was so important that we didn't have the internet really. I mean, it was just getting going. So you needed that, right? So you needed that name, that was the trusted name in real estate. Now it's changed so much that we can advertise online and we like get our names out there all the time. It has changed from a broker centric business to an agent centric business.
As well it should.
And the companies like Real, they get it. That's why they want their agents being talked about more than the company. And that's why for us personally, and also attracting agents, they love it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny when you say that, Brad, because it's funny because Real doesn't push that side of it, right? But we talk about Real more than we ever did because we love it. And we're proud to, wear our swag with Real on it because we love it. Like it's literally like the best thing that's, happened for us in our business. And it's so great. But, going back to what you said about being local, it was like for those 24 to 48 hours after, and maybe even that first week, because it took a little while because there was all kinds of, restraints upon us, upon our clients and not being able to contact them and et cetera from our previous brokerage that, it's just law. It wasn't them doing it. It was law and we followed the law. But as people started to reach out to us, yes, I mean, it was the most amazing thing, like how excited people were for us. And yeah, like Brad said, they would just be like, what took you so long? This is the best thing. And it's almost like they felt like they knew that we could accomplish so much more and we were holding ourselves back. And so it was really just us getting in the way of ourselves. And so we just, it's that old saying, get out of your own way. And I think that that's what had to happen.
And to answer the question, what took so long? I mean, there's this loyalty thing, of course. And we really liked the people there. I mean, that wasn't the issue at all. It was that if we were going to do this, it had to be the perfect situation. And that's what Real ended up being is obviously when you're at one brokerage for 23 years, you're not a brokerage jumper, which, there's a lot of agents like that, which I really think is terrible for your business when you're changing companies every other year and you want to get the best deal and you want to do this and that. That's why I really think it spoke volumes that we were there for 23 years, or I was there for 23. You were there for 17.
Correct. 15, I think, actually. We've been married for 17,
yeah. So that's a huge deal. And it had to be the perfect situation, and it was. And like I said, it's even better than I expected.
Well, and I just want to add to that is that, going back to this local thing, because it is something, if there is, it is something that some people from some of those brokerages do try to kind of throw back and say that, and whatnot. But, to Brad's point, I mean, that's why it was very important for us to have a brick and mortar. Now, there's a lot of real agents throughout the country that do not have a brick and mortar. They operate out of their homes, whatever, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's great if that works for you. And I think that's just amazing as if that's an opportunity. For us, though, because we are invested in this community, right? And this is where we all call home. We knew it was important to have a brick and mortar that we pay for and support. And the wonderful thing is that because of Real's business model, we're able to keep more of our money instead of paying a huge split to our brokerage, which then in turn we can have a brick and mortar and invest back into our community. That's what I think is the other beautiful thing. It just allows us to do more things and invest in more things in our community because we're taking home a bigger paycheck.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. I mean, we just knew it was time, right? I mean, we knew that we had to go on and to do the next best thing. And I'm loyal at times.
Not the next best thing, the best thing.
The best thing. I'm loyal at times to a fault. And I think part of it was the last 5 or 6 years there that I knew that we needed to do something different, but it was the loyalty aspect that was the hardest. And I knew we had outgrown where we were at. And I know a lot of people out there right now, you're probably thinking that. Like, I feel like I'm just going through the motions. I need something better. And I would highly advise that you look into a company that allows you to be an owner, that allows you to grow with the company. I mean, what awesome, when I look at this, how awesome is it that we are a part of the growth directly, and we're also getting compensated for that.
Right, that's what I was going to say. We haven't even got into revenue share, which, Tamir on one of his podcasts calls marketing share, which I think is true. I mean, that's truly what it is. I mean, the company compensates you because as you help the company grow.
You're an ambassador.
Right. I mean, and why wouldn't you, right? It's just like anything else. I mean, people help companies grow all the time, but they don't always get compensated for that, which that's another one of the beautiful things that, like, for us with marketing share, rev share, that's just, again, it's just a cherry and the bonus on top. We never, I mean, at this point, and I know people are like, oh, revenue share, this, that, da, da, da. We haven't really put effort into revenue share. Revenue share has just happened because of the people that have come to us inquiring about Real and why we made the decision we made and have made it. And, we have a network of approaching, almost 100 people. We're getting there. That's our goal by the end of the year, and we're close. And it literally pays our mortgage. I mean, that's real money. So again, you take the money that you would have spent on that and you can reinvest it back in your business and your clients or save. I mean, those are things, again, that it was a no-brainer. It's like you don't have to be on that hamster wheel as much as you were previously. You can do things in your community. We're very passionate about our church and things like that. And like our church is building a new school, and we were able to, give back to that again, because it's just a different business model that allows us to be in a better financial situation and happier.
Yeah, no, everything that you just said is spot on.
It's about happiness, the ability to grow and serve our clients better. What an incredible reflection, because I think it's been a long time coming to actually, because I don't know about you all, but I don't think I've unpacked to the point of this. But it's a story that needs to be told, because I think there are other people out there that are also thinking about this decision, maybe be in a similar situation where, you've been with, a certain brokerage or company for so long, and you just don't feel that you fit there anymore. So, if you have any questions, we hope that this episode, gave you some encouragement, insight on maybe what the next steps should be. But also want to leave you with some final last thoughts on how happy, I mean, you guys you poured it all out to everybody out there to hear the real raw story of it. But final thoughts on?
Yeah. So where we came from, there were awesome people there. Really enjoyed it. I mean, we were there for 23 years, and the family connection was a lot longer than that, and they were great to us. Where we're at now is the opportunity to build this thing with the company. And I'm so excited about where Real's going, that I'm just glad that I am a part of it. And they make me every day feel like I am a big reason for their growth. And they do that with all their agents. And it starts at the top, and we have great leadership at Real, and I'm just very proud that I am with.
Yeah, my final thought, and I thought about this person several times throughout this conversation, but obviously we have two amazing business partners that made this leap right alongside of us. That Sarah DeWolf, Peter Hansen. That we'll get into that sometime. We'll have them on the pod, and we'll share the whole story of how Lunch and Learn came about. That's a good one.
Still on our phone is Lunch and Learn.
God bless us all. But for me, I think too, this speaks to the collaboration and the culture at Real is that our sponsor, Karen Cooper, who the reason why she's our sponsor is because I just, after listening to a podcast, randomly called her one day. I remember I was sitting out on my patio and I just asked her question after question after question. And she was so amazingly, and I know how busy of a woman she has. She has multiple businesses and revenue streams and her podcasts and her Empowering Women group and all these things. And I was like, wow, I mean, is this what Real's going to be like? And I'll tell you what, not only do I still have Karen Cooper that we can contact, anybody in our group can contact, and she is just a wealth of knowledge. Her and Vicky, her business partner, are just amazing individuals, and we're blessed to have them. But that I have 26,500 other people at Real that I know that I could have that same conversation with, and we do. And to me, that's what's the most amazing thing. It is the whole collaboration over competition. It is the we is bigger than me. And it's that the business model, we didn't even get into all of the different things, but all the different revenue streams and the different ways that you can build your business and be a real estate entrepreneur, not just a real estate agent, to me is just the biggest breath of fresh air. I said this to you, Brad, like shortly after we made the move, I felt like I had a ton of bricks on my chest and they were completely lifted. And I do want to share this because this is, I think, speaks volumes to like our faith and our journey. This morning, we knew we were going to do this podcast today. And this morning, every day I do a rosary. And so this morning I was doing my rosary and I'm praying about, this podcast and sharing, what we need to share to help others in their quality of life and their business and their future goals and where they want to be so they can be the best version of themselves they can be. And as I'm doing that, literally, this deck that overlooks our office, the cardinals would not stop flying in and out. I bet you there was 20 of them that came and went. And I just know 100% that was just, your mom, your grandma, the people that have went before us. There's other special people in our life, people at Real that, we've lost in the last couple of years. And I just know that was everybody, God just saying, you know what, this is something you need to share because it is important for other people to hear this message, because everyone needs to know, if they're passionate about real estate, that this is a vehicle that can help you lead a better life in real estate.
Very well said.